The biggest part of homesteading life for me is connecting with the seasons, living in tune with the seasons. And that's why maple tapping is just such a huge thing for me. It's so important. It's such an important part of my annual rhythm. It signals the beginning of food production. I have my mom with me today, which is really nice. This is her farm where we're tapping our sugar maple trees. This is a tradition that we've had for a long time.
Many years.
I think I was 13 when we moved into the farm that had the big sugar maples, and that's when we really started tapping.
Yep.
And since then, I mean, this is your second spring on this farm. And we haven't tapped here yet, but this was used commercially. There was a large sugar maple syrup producer, whatever it's called, who rented different sugar bushes in the area, and so they tapped here. And we decided that it would be nice to remove all of those tubes from the forest, because it was just the tubing was run all throughout the forest, and then it was pulled into like a central vat of sap, but you couldn't walk freely through the forest, and it just didn't feel nice. It felt like a big cage in there. But this is my first year tapping in a sugar bush, because I have always tapped in the suburbs on my own. I've tapped Norway maples and Manitoba maples, just kind of desperate to get syrup.
You've gotten good syrup from them too.
Yeah, and some people will say that the syrup tastes different or less good from non-sugar maples, but I've tasted syrup from the same tree that tasted different depending on the time of year it was collected, the year it was collected, the environmental conditions. So I don't know if it's fair to say that like one species of maple tastes worse than another species. I think every tree tastes slightly different every time you do it.
Every time you do it, and every week through the season, it's different too. The very first run is exquisite. It's by far the best. It's a light gold amber color when it's ready, when it's boiled enough. Very easy to overboil it into sugar because you don't think it's done yet. But it's really good. It's by far the best run, and I think some places actually charge a premium for that run.
Wow.
Yep.
And we missed the first run this year because I was overwhelmed. But we're getting our second run. Second wind, second run.
Not gonna miss that.
No. Okay, well, I'm gonna show some of the supplies that we've brought today. So these galvanized buckets here are what we use when we want it to look nice and romantic and rustic and farm-like. The problem with these is A, capacity. They just don't hold as much before you have to come and dump them. And B, you can get lids for them, but they're not tight fitting. I don't have lids for these. And then you get rainwater and potentially dead squirrels and all kinds of nasty things in here. So they look beautiful, but for practicality's sake, I like to use plastic buckets. These are my favorite. They're Home Depot food grade buckets. It shows the number of liters on the side. And then also this year, I'm using cat litter boxes. You know, I have to balance my desire for the romanticism of tree tapping with my pragmatism and the fact that these were free and they were going to go to the landfill. And I washed them really well. No, they're not food grade, but like there's plastic and everything. So whatever, we're going to use these free buckets this year because we need a lot more buckets than ever before. And then we've got tubing. Tubing is food grade, and it fits on top of the spiles. I have a couple different types of spiles because we've been doing this for a lot of years, collecting different types. This is the kind that typically goes into or over top of the metal bucket. Focus. Focus. It's not focusing. And I'm going to try to shove some tubing on the end of this one just because it's the type of spile we had. And then classic plastic spile. This end goes into the tree. Tubing attaches to this little thingy on the bottom. You'll also need a drill with a couple different sized drill bits, and you will need a rubber mallet. The first thing you have to do is identify your tree. So if you're looking for a sugar maple, you're going to look for, first of all, a large enough tree that the bark starts to look like this. You need at least a 12-inch diameter tree to safely tap it without stressing the tree out. Sugar maple trees have variable bark, and it's usually grayish, but you can have a brown tinge. You can see there's a bit of brown here where some of the bark has broken off, but over here it's mostly grayish bark. It's furrowed, scaly bark. You can see that. furrowed here, kind of scaly. Another way to ID sugar maples is by the buds. Sugar maple buds are long, slender little things, reddish brown. Other types of maples, like red maple, have more of like a bumpy, reddish bud. These are really pointy. I've heard them described as an upside down ice cream cone shape. And the twigs are typically opposite, except often they break off and it's hard to tell that. But you can see this one here, they come out exactly opposite each other from the middle branch. So that's the kind of thing you're looking for to ID a sugar maple. I want to let you know that we're tapping sugar maples today, but you can tap any maple for maple syrup. You can tap red maples, Norway maples, Manitoba maples. I mean, I've tapped all those personally. You can also tap other trees for different kinds of syrup. You can tap walnut trees and birch trees. I haven't done those. I know that your yield is very small with that kind of thing. So, you know, weigh your pros and cons. But for maple syrup, the sugar maple is king of the trees. Not necessary to be a sugar maple, but it's nice. It's really nice. I'm not gonna lie to you. To have this sugar bush behind me feels like I'm dreaming. Smoking. Like, it is not getting in there. It might be because they're so frozen.
I don't know.
Not budging. I think it's the tree. The tree's saying, don't tap me. Huh.
I ended up packing it in yesterday after only somewhat successfully tapping one tree. The trees were just too frozen still, and frozen hardwood is extremely hard to drill into. You can cause all kinds of problems with your sap run if you force a tap into a tree. So anyway, I came back just 24 hours later and it was totally thawed and the sap was absolutely flowing.
Let's see. Can't use scissors with mittens on.
How much do you need to get out of that?
I don't know.
So I'm just thinking.
These are my only 2 fat spiles.
But I've got more of those.
Okay. I think there's 10 feet of this.
So if you do like just over 3 feet.
Yep.
You get 2 more out of that easy.
Yeah. Actually, I think I had 3 of these. Oh yeah, one of them is stuck to a... Oh. I brought the buckets home. Oh boy. Well, it's all right. I'm going to come back to dump these tomorrow because...
Well, once they start running faster, you won't forget it tomorrow.
Alrighty. You can see this tree is already just pouring out the sap. This may seem kind of strange, but I'm communing with the trees. Okay, it sounds really strange. I'm somebody who has been highly scientific and skeptical my whole life, but there's something about connecting with nature, connecting with trees, hugging a tree. It's real. It's real, people. There's something special about it. I really feel like, weirdly enough, I'm communicating with the trees. That tree gave me the sense that it should only have one tap. God, as somebody who was raised the way that I was raised in academic institutions my whole life, I recognize how loopy this sounds, but like, I don't know, it's a thing. It's a deep feeling. I'm communing with the trees. I want to have a relationship with this forest and with these trees. I want to take care of them. So we're going to be respectful as we tap the trees. That's it. Doesn't sound that crazy when you say it that way. So yesterday I was here on this beautiful sunny day. The weather didn't rise above, the temperature didn't rise above freezing until after I left though. It was like -1 when I was here and the trees were still frozen. And I tried 3 drill bits and I could not get the drill bit into the trees. I did 1 tree successfully, but like I wore out a battery. I moved on to another tree and I cauterized the hole. The drill bit went in like a centimeter and then it started smoking and it cauterized the hole. That tree was like, stop it. I am frozen inside. And so I left, packed it all in, I left. I felt really defeated because I wanted to make a YouTube video and I wanted to get all the footage I needed at one time. But I slept on it and I did some reading and I was reading about the risks of tapping trees that are not ready yet, that are too frozen. And like, sure, the professionals, people who are tapping huge amounts of trees, they do it in January, but they have very special, very expensive drill bits and they have techniques down. I don't, I just have whatever old drill bit. And I wanted to be a little bit delicate on the trees. So I waited and I came back today and they are pouring out the sap. Like one day, 24 hours made all the difference. And it's not even sunny today. But I think that waiting a day really paid off. So as soon as the drill bit comes out of the tree, the sap starts pouring. Coincidentally, I brought home a bunch of the spiles yesterday in the coat that I was wearing yesterday. And I'm wearing a different coat today. I don't have all the spiles with me, so I had to come back tomorrow anyway. I mean, I have to come back every day now to dump the sap bucket. Sap can spoil if you don't collect it regularly. I've had it spoil within 24 hours of sitting outside in a bucket on a warm sunny day. It just starts to go like rancid. It tastes bad, tastes funky, like a skunky beer kind of. So my mom has a big empty chest freezer. I'm gonna need to get some more of these cat litter buckets or some buckets and start stocking up sap in the chest freezer until we get a chance to do a big boil day. Now, my family's really busy next weekend, so we have to store sap for potentially 2 weeks before we can do a massive boil. A chest freezer comes in handy that way. If you're doing this on a small scale, like when I was in the suburbs, I would tap just 1 Norway maple on my roadside, and I would have to wait weeks to collect enough sap to make it worth it, to get like a 26-liter bucket full. I think that's a 5-gallon pail. And then do a big boil with that. And I used juice jugs. I'd collect them from family members and neighbors and just fill them 3/4 of the way full with the sap and freeze them in my tiny little chest freezer that I had in my old little house. And then I would thaw them out the day before and then do the boil. A little bit labor intensive, but if you can't be boiling regularly to keep up with the sap production, then you should consider freezing your sap so it doesn't spoil. One of the reasons why it's important to wait until the trees are thawed to do your tapping, if you're just an amateur tapper like me and you don't have specialized equipment, is because if you forcibly tap a tree, if you drill into a tree that's frozen and then you pound a spile into frozen wood, you can actually cause a split in the tree above and below the spile. You may not see it on the outside, but it's in there, and then it causes leakage. That's what's happened here. This was one of the ones I tried yesterday. This poor tree is the one I tried yesterday, and you can see now the bark is wet down the sides. This is sap that's not going through the spile, it's just leaking down around the hole. And the spile looks like it's tight in there, but I must have split the tree a bit inside where I was pounding the spile in. Now, I'm hoping I will have caught the audio when I was pounding a spile in on one of the other trees today, because you can hear a sound change when you're pounding and it's seated properly. You can hear the tone go up and up and up as you hit it, and then all of a sudden it's just like a dull sound and the tone stops changing. Your spile is seated properly in the tree at that point, and you should stop pounding on it because you can end up like clogging the hole or causing a crack, and then you end up with leaking. Leaking like this can also happen if you used a drill bit that was too big for the spile. So if you're unsure, always start small and then you can go a little bigger if you have to. Usually spiles nowadays are 5/16 drill bit size. If you have an older style, it may be a 7/16, but like there's so many different spiles on the market now that just bring your drill bits to the field with you or to the forest with you, hold it up to your spiles and you'll figure out which one you need. Today, with these new spiles that I was using, it was a 5/16 drill bit. With my older, the galvanized ones that are meant to go into the nice metal buckets, those are a 7/16 or like a 5/32, something super weird like that. So just be mindful of your drill bit sizes and make sure that they align with the spile and are not bigger than the spile, or you will get leakage like this. What we're gonna do about this, we're gonna pull the spile out. I need a clawed hammer to get it out, I think. We're gonna let the tree heal over here and use the spile elsewhere because it's not gonna go into the bucket like this. All right, I'm gonna call it quits for today. I have to come back tomorrow and tap a few more trees, a couple more trees. I think I have 4 more spiles, so you know, maybe 2 or 3 more trees. And I'm probably not going to add that to this footage, but the next time that I bring you along on this maple tapping journey is when we do our boil. I don't think we're going to get to boil until the very end of March, so it's going to be a bit of a delayed process, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be nice weather by then. We'll do a big outdoor fire. If you find yourself with a maple tree, nice wide girthed maple tree, and you feel like you want to try collecting some sap to make syrup, just go for it. The supplies are relatively cheap. You may not be able to tap this year still because we're getting kind of late in the season. If you're further north than me, you may be able to still tap your maples. You need daytime temps that are above freezing and nighttime temps that are below freezing for a few days to really capitalize on that sap flow. But if you want to try doing this next year, then you know, come and follow along the whole journey. We have a lot of boiling to do of all of this sap as well, and then the cleanup process after. So follow along to get your tips and you can try it next year. I hope that you'll come grow with us and tap maple trees with us and make maple syrup with us. Thanks for watching.